Welcome, Sport Rivalry fans, to another episode of This Week in Rivalry presented by SportRivalry.com. I'm your host, Ricky Fitzpatrick. This week we will be covering rivalries in the NFL between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, and the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. We have a special guest on the show, Dr. Joe Cobbs of Northern Kentucky University. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how rival perceptions differ between conferences in college athletics. Now to discuss how rival animosity differs between fans of the professional sport, we hear from Dr. Joe Cobbs from Northern Kentucky University and KnowRivalry.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. Joe Cobbs from Northern Kentucky University. Together with a former student, Daniel Sparks, and my research partner, Dr. David Tyler from Western Carolina University, I recently finished a study that surveyed almost 5,000 sports fans in the U.S. and Canada, where we compared the reactions to rivals across the 5 major professional leagues. We found that NFL fans harbored significantly greater animosity toward their favorite team's top rival compared with fans of the NBA, NHL, MLS, or Major League Baseball. For example, NFL fans were more likely to discriminate against rival team fans by not wanting such fans as their boss, not considering dating rival fans, or being opposed to rival fans and their family. Also, NFL fans took more joy in the misfortunes of their rival team compared to fans in other leagues. It seems the hostility of the sport may not be confined to just the football field.
Thank you, Dr. Cobbs. The first rivalry game we will be discussing is the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams are coming off a loss and are looking to bounce back. To dig deeper into the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ravens rivalry, we have my former professor, Kimberly Morgan West.
Hello, this is Kimberly Morgan West of SportRivalry.com, here today to discuss the rivalry between the Baltimore Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's join Sport Rivalry Man through a journey of this exciting rivalry. This rivalry, sometimes known as the Blood Feud, is coined as the most emotional, intense rivalry in all of sports. However, the Ravens weren't always the Steelers' rivals. The Steelers were originally rivals with the Cleveland Browns, but that all changed when the Browns owners relocated the Browns to Baltimore, creating the new team, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens began their franchise in 1996. Early on, heat rose between the Steelers and Ravens as they constantly battled for the crown of the AFC. The Ravens and Steelers first met at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh on September 8, 1996, which resulted in a 31-17 win for the Steelers. Later in the 1996 NFL season on December 1st, the Ravens beat the Steelers by the very same score of 31-17 at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. The Steelers dominated the series in the early years, winning 9 of the 13 meetings before the AFC Central was restructured into the AFC North in 2002. As of today, the Steelers still lead the series at 25-21 for a total of 46 meetings. The rivalry reached new heights of intensity during the 2008 football season when the Ravens and Steelers played 3 times, with the final match being the AFC Championships. In the playoff game, the last score was an interception that was returned for a touchdown by Troy Polamalu, earning a 23-14 victory in Pittsburgh. In the same game, the Steelers' Ryan Clark delivered a concussion-inducing hit on Ravens' Willis McGee that left Clark briefly out cold and forced McGee to spend the night in a Pittsburgh hospital. The Steelers then went on to win Super Bowl 43 against the Arizona Cardinals. One of the rivalry's most memorable moments also happened during the 2008 season when Ravens linebacker Terrell Suggs was quoted as saying that a bounty was put on the head of Steelers wide receiver Hines Ward. The bounty controversy eventually cleared up when Suggs insisted that his words were meant as just a joke. The NFL investigated and Suggs was cleared of any wrongdoing. The two teams met again on Thanksgiving Day in 2013 for another legendary game. The Ravens won the game 22-20, forcing a split between the rivals in the 2013 season. This game also included an infamous moment when Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin interfered on the sidelines with what could have possibly been a return touchdown by Jacoby Jones, eventually resulting in a $100,000 fine for Tomlin. Through bloodshed and broken bones, both coaches agree that the Ravens-Steelers rivalry is by far the best rivalry in the NFL. These teams will continue to talk trash and make meaningless threats against one another on and off the field, but the two will always have a mutual respect along with a mutual hatred for one another. In today's lesson, we will discuss disposition theory. Disposition theory is defined as people celebrating when someone they like is successful and someone they dislike is unsuccessful. An example of this would be when the Ravens lost the playoffs to the Steelers in 2008. For SportRivalry.com, this is Kimberly Morgan West, signing off.
We have our fan perspective special reporter, Jayla Sims, with a fan's thoughts on the Steelers and Raven rivalry. Jayla?
Hey sport fans, this is Jayla Sims with SportRivalry.com, and I am here with your fan perspectives. A Steelers fan shared with us, "It is the most hard-hitting rivalry in the NFL. This game tests each team. The winner usually goes to the playoffs and contends for the AFC Championship. Both teams bring their A game. This game is filled with the hardest hits, most injuries, and the least scoring for both teams. Most times the game is won by no more than 6 points. They have historically had a mirrored defense." When it comes to Ravens fans, they may be cool, but something is not right in their heads. One thing I can say is that Pittsburgh has had 6 championships and Baltimore only has 2. That isn't really competition. Pittsburgh is a superior team and Pittsburgh will win by a lot. And now, Ricky, back to you.
Thank you, Jayla. The next rivalry we'll be covering this episode is the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers rivalry. With the two cities being 3.5 hours away from each other, home field advantage is not a component in this game. To give us insight on the history of this dynamic rivalry, we have Sam McAdams.
This is Sam McAdams with SportRivalry.com, here to talk about one of the oldest rivalries in the NFL. Known as the oldest rivalry, the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers started playing each other in 1921. Although the oldest, it is not the longest consecutive played rivalry, as the 1982 strike-shortened season did not feature a Bears-Packers matchup. At the conclusion of the 2016-2017 season, this rivalry has played 194 games with an overall record of 94 wins, 94 losses, and 6 ties. Throughout the years, the rivalry has gone back and forth of each team showing a dominant stretch in games. The first 10 games went in favor of Chicago with 7 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties. Green Bay took the next 10-game stretch with a record of 8 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. The Bears' first win was a 20-0 shutout on November 27, 1921 at Cubs Park in Chicago. And the Packers' first win came on September 26, 1925 and resulted in a score of 14-10 at City Stadium in Green Bay. This rivalry has boosted some major icons in the NFL, including Vince Lombardi, Brent Favre, Walter Payton, and Mike Ditka. Lombardi was the Packers head coach from 1959 to 1967. While he was coach, Green Bay never had a losing season and won 5 championships overall, including 3 straight. The Super Bowl trophy was named after him in 1971 and is now known as the greatest professional football coach. During a game in 1924, Chicago's Frank Haney and Green Bay's Walter Voss traded insults and punches after a play, which led to them being ejected from the game. This became the first official ejection of players during a game in the NFL. The 1980s boosted most of the drama that came with the rivalry. Before a game in 1985, Chicago traveled to Lambeau Field to play Green Bay and found 2 big bags of horse manure waiting for them in the locker room. The Packers' pregame prank did not help them as Chicago won the game with a score of 16-10. A year later, on November 23, 1986, a defensive tackle for the Packers named Charles Martin wore a towel during a game that had the numbers of a few Bears players written on it, known as a hit list, including quarterback Jim McMahon. After McMahon had thrown an interception, Martin grabbed and slammed McMahon into the turf, which caused a shoulder injury and ended McMahon's season. One of the best games in this rivalry is the 2010 NFC Championship game at Soldier Field in Chicago. Green Bay had a 14-0 lead before Bears quarterback Jay Cutler suffered a sprained knee. Backup quarterback Caleb Haney led a comeback effort to only be down 21-14. After moving the ball down the field and trying to tie the game, Haney was looking at the end zone from the Packers' 13-yard line with 43 seconds left. He attempted a pass, but it was intercepted, sealing a Green Bay victory and a trip to the Super Bowl. With the Bears and Packers being in the NFC North Division, watching them play twice a year will always be good football and a great rivalry. Thank you for listening, and again, this is Sam McAdams from Sport Rivalry signing off.
Thank you, Sam. Once again, we're going to hear from Jayla Sims. This time, she'll have insight from a Chicago Bears fan.
One Bears fan said, "When you think of Chicago, you can't help but think of all the great defenses. And when you think about Green Bay, you can't help to think about the offense. I honestly think football is much better when Green Bay and Chicago are having good seasons. It's a game where you toss the records out of the equation and they play each other tough. Side note, the Bears have the most Hall of Famers in the NFL."
Thank you, Jayla. To close out the show, I get to let you in on who I believe will come out on top of these 2 passion-driven games. I'm going to start with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Coming off a shocking loss against Chicago Bears, the Steelers definitely have something to prove. On the other side, Baltimore's come off an embarrassing, humiliating loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They didn't score into the 4th quarter. With that being said, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know a few weeks ago I said I go for the underdog, but with that 44-7 loss, Baltimore is more like a dead dog. Sad. Not saying it'll be an easy game, but the Steelers will come out on top unquestionably. Moving on, before I upset a Ravens fan, let's discuss Chicago and Green Bay. As I just previously stated, the Chicago Bears are coming off a statement win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game did go into overtime, so the rest time between their Sunday night game and their Thursday game was cut short. I think the adrenaline has held through. On the other side, Green Bay has also came out on top of an overtime thriller as well, but it was against the Bengals. This is no question the bigger rivalry game, being that their all-time series record is at a tie. They're on a level playing field. With all of that being said, I have to go with the Chicago Bears. I feel that they have more to show for, even though Green Bay has something to prove. The Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers play Thursday night at 7:25 p.m. That's September 28th. The Steelers and the Ravens play Sunday at noon. That's October the 1st. They both air on CBS. Well, that's the end of our show for the NFL special for This Week in Rivalry presented by SportRivalry.com. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Dr. Cobbs, Professor Kimberly Morgan-West, and Sam McAdam. I'm Ricky Fitzpatrick, your editor and host. Have a great week.